Xbox is officially dead. Yes, you read that title correctly. It is gone. Xbox, the Microsoft Bill Gates started video game company, has officially not just shot itself in the foot, but shot itself directly in the forehead with a 12-gauge shotgun. Now, if you've been living under a rock, you probably missed it, but most recently, Xbox has been in the news because they have done some very, very naughty, not so popular things. Specifically, they went ahead and they shut down two of their most popular game studios. They shut down Arcane Awesome, the same studio that has created amazing games like Prey and like Dishonored 2. They also developed Redfall. Not a great game, but that might not be the reason they were shut down. Because they also shut down Tango Gameworks, a studio that had just developed for them one of their biggest hits on Game Pass, this game called Hi-Fi Rush, a game that had over 4 million players on Game Pass, despite Microsoft Ghost launching the game with zero marketing, zero anything. They also make games like Ghostwire Tokyo, they also make games like The Evil Within. They are altogether a great, successful game studio that, you wouldn't expect to be shut down. Now, of course, this created a lot of drama in the gaming industry. People mad at Microsoft. People wanting to remove Phil Spencer from his leadership role that he has held for so long now. They are pissed. They are angry. You have leakers and different sources saying that it's no longer Xbox. It's now Microsoft Gaming. They're heading away from hardware. They're heading away from what made Xbox great. And now they are just going to be this kind of corporate mega machine that just cares about money and doesn't care about producing games. So I really want to get into it. I really want to talk about how we led to this point and kind of give my opinion on the whole Microsoft Xbox situation, because me personally, I want to kind of get this through. I used to be a big Xbox guy. When I was growing up, when I was 9, 8 years old, my grandma bought me an Xbox 360. It was the greatest thing ever, and I played that thing for years. Call of Duty, Halo, all the stuff Xbox had to offer, Gears of War. I was an Xbox fanboy. But then I got a PlayStation. And I bought God of War 3. And ever since then, I've just been kind of a PlayStation guy. I mean, how can you not be? You look at the catalog of games. Over the last 10 years, you've had The Last of Us, you've had God of War, you've had Uncharted 4, The Last of Us Part 2, God of War Ragnarok, Ghost of Tsushima, Days Gone, Spider-Man. I mean, God, man, it is just unbelievable how Sony is able to continue pumping out games that they hold exclusive to them. Now, Xbox, throughout the last two generations, the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X, have been unable to kind of put out that same kind of output. You look at the classic games that they've had. You had Halo 5, you had Halo Infinite, you had Gears of War 4, you had Gears of War 5. You see what I'm getting at? Xbox just hasn't had that number of exclusives. Now, of course, they've had games like the Forza series. They've had games like Gears and Halo that have been relatively successful for them. And there have been some others, but they have yet to really produce these kind of game industry changing, offerings that really make it so you have to buy their consoles, which has led to sort of this decline both in sales for the Xboxes, but also just in kind of the image of the name, the image of the platform, the image of the license, Xbox has kind of become this weird third stepchild of the gaming industry that people just make fun of, right? You have Sony and Nintendo kicking ass constantly, and then you just have that ugly little Xbox on the side that people just, ignore that.
Shut up, Meg.
Outside of Game Pass, which is like the one thing Microsoft did that was great, they really have nothing to write home about with what they've done in the industry lately. Now, it's not for lack of trying. Microsoft had gone out over the last 5 years and they've bought a ton of game studios. They bought Bethesda, they bought Ninja Theory, they bought so many different big, huge game studios, publishers, all these different things. They have all of Bethesda Studios, Arcane, all of these major companies, and then they did the big one. They went ahead and they bought Activision, which gives them, it gives them Blizzard, it gives them some other companies, but mainly, it gives them Call of Duty. Microsoft now gets all of the money from Call of Duty. That is a big deal since Call of Duty continues to be one of the best-selling games in the world. But here's the issue. Since they have bought all these companies and they started this weird initiative to try to get these big exclusive games, they just haven't gotten them yet. And there's been a lot of troubles. We had that Fable game that was announced, that big Fable game, which, all honesty, it looks great from what we've seen of it. But it has been like 6 years, and there is just no sign of this game coming out anytime soon. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe next month we'll get a showcase and it'll be coming, but we don't know, and we have not seen much of it. We just don't know what this is. We also got that Perfect Dark game, a game that on paper sounds like it could be great. A big relaunch of the Perfect Dark universe in the style of a gigantic AAA game, sort of like Uncharted. That could be really awesome. We haven't heard shit in years. Yet again, that could change soon, but we just haven't in years heard anything about this. And then you look at what Bethesda's put out. Bethesda really hasn't put out too much yet. You've had Redfall, which is the first major game from Arcane, which is not good at all. Yes, we have the Blade game coming from Arcane, which could be exciting, but that's probably years down the line. Then Bethesda releases their first major game since 2015, their big, gigantic console-selling game, Starfield. And unfortunately, it just happened to be one of the biggest poopers that Bethesda's ever released. Now, I know, there's a lot of people that love Starfield, they love the shit out of it, they will die on their shield defending that game, but you cannot argue that it was not a commercial kind of worldwide, I don't want to say failure, but letdown. It was not the Fallout 4 that they wanted. It was not the Elder Scrolls 5 that they wanted. It ended up just kind of being a fart in what was a great year for games. But because all that's happening, and because we've now come to a point where Microsoft has gone so many years of being kind of the laughingstock of the industry and not having these big games, and now we also exist in a time in the industry where everybody's sort of losing money for a multitude of different reasons. A, because in 2020, 2021, there was kind of a boom in this industry because everybody was at home playing video games constantly because of COVID. So obviously, since people aren't doing that anymore, there's been a low in the industry. But it's also this weird point where these big, amazing games that have become the expectation for consumers take a lot more time to make, and they take a fuck ton more money, and sometimes they just do not sell as well, so it feels like you wasted all that time and money for nothing. So because of that, the industry is kind of suffering right now. You also have all these studios doing really stupid things, like making ridiculous amounts of live service games that almost all fail. Like, look at Warner Brothers. They have Hogwarts Legacy, this single-player, RPG in Hogwarts. It's like one of the biggest sellers, one of the biggest, most successful games of last year. Then they have Suicide Squad, a live service game, which completely falls flat, crashes, pisses everybody off. And Warner Brothers goes, you know what we should do? Hogwarts Legacy 2, it's gonna be a live service game, because that's what we need more of. So obviously the industry's a mess right now, because you have a bunch of incompetent people that don't know shit about video games or anything else running the top of it, and Microsoft is suffering from that as well. But unlike companies like Sony, and unlike companies like Nintendo, they just don't seem to have the ability to put out that great game. So now they are in a position where they're cost-cutting, and they're shutting down some of the studios that they had spent billions of dollars to buy. Now, the reason a lot of people have problems with this is not that they're cutting costs, that they're shutting down studios. This is going to happen in business. It's just the way that it is. I think it's more so the companies that they're shutting down. You have Arcane Austin, which, yes, they did make Redfall, which is one of the biggest flops in the history of gaming. It's atrocious, but they also made two of the best games we had gotten in the last generation. Prey, which is kind of this very kind of quiet first-person shooter. You're going through the space station. It's a reboot of an old game, and it's nothing like the original Prey. But it's a game that a lot of people liked, and I don't know if it was much of a financial success, but this was before they were under the umbrella of Microsoft, and it was a game that was not marketed very, very well, but it's a great game. You also had Dishonored 2 that they made. This is a studio that is capable of making great games when you're not forcing them to make a live service mess. But they're cut. They're gone. They no longer exist, so now you only have one Arcane studio, Arcane Leon. But I think the main one is Tango Games Works. Now, Microsoft is trying to put out good games consistently. Tango Games Works is a studio that not only puts out good to great games, but they put them out on a regular basis. This is a studio that works fast and is producing games at a very high level. Hi-Fi Rush last year was one of the most, if not the most successful game Microsoft had on Game Pass last year. It is exactly what they have been asking for. A smaller game that was not as expensive to make, that was very popular, people loved, and it brought people to Game Pass. Ghostwire Tokyo, although not an Xbox game at the time, it was a game that was released on PlayStation first, but that was a fun, different first-person shooter that was not a lot of people's things, but it worked for most, and it did well. And it's a game that they released only 1 year before Hi-Fi Rush. They released 2 games in a very short period of time. That's what you want in a day and age where studios like Rockstar and Rocksteady are taking 10 years to make games. I mean, you had 2 games in 2 years. What else do you want? They also made the 2 Evil Within games, and there were rumors of them making an Evil Within 3. This is a studio that worked and put out games. What more is Microsoft looking for? How is this the choice studio? And I'm sure maybe there are some inner metrics that show that the studio was the least profitable, or what they were creating was not going to be profitable. I'm sure they have some sort of inner analytics. Their Harvard grad analyst department at the top, these little nerds who have never done anything in video games ever or accomplished anything, are sitting there saying, oh, our projections show that Tango Games Works is going to lose like $20 if they make this next game. Like, I'm sure some shit like that's probably happening, and that's what they'll come out and say eventually. But at the end of the day, just logic says you don't shut down the game studio that has been productive and has been profitable when it comes to putting out successful games. I don't know if they've been profitable in general, but they've been putting out successful games that you, Microsoft, Phil Spencer, didn't even market. So now Microsoft has this new game coming out called Hellblade 2. This is the sequel, the long-awaited sequel to the original Senua's Sacrifice game. I think I'm saying that right. I've never played it, but it's a great, popular game. This game has been in the works for, what, 7 years now? Microsoft was showing it at every freaking event for years, and all of a sudden, now a month into release, nothing. Crickets. They're not talking about it, they're not showing the game, they're not even mentioning it. Now, there could be a couple reasons. A, maybe the game is not living up to their own expectations, right? Maybe this game that they've worked on for 7 years and hyped up and looks like the greatest graphical showcase of the Xbox Series X in the history of the world, maybe it's a stinker. But if it's not, if this game comes out and it is a success, and it does well, and Microsoft starts shutting down more studios, you really have to question the leadership at the top, because this game looks great. I mean, the trailers look great. This looks like the game they've been waiting for. Big, beautiful graphics, over-the-top story, and just set pieces. This looks like the massive game they've been waiting for, and they're acting like it doesn't even exist. Microsoft, what the fuck? So this leads into my prediction, what I think is actually happening. I think Microsoft, whether it's Phil Spencer's decision or the people at the top or anybody else's decision, I think what they are currently doing is they are slowly moving away from the hardware and maybe even like the publisher side of gaming. I think they want to move more into being a Game Pass company. I think Microsoft Gaming wants to be the company that offers Game Pass, offers cloud services, offers other technological stuff, but does not eventually sell more Xboxes and is maybe not running a bunch of studios. They'll have their core set of studios, they'll have Game Pass and all this stuff, and I think they're trying to get away from being one of the leading #1 companies in the gaming industry when it comes to producing hardware and owning studios. That's my idea of what they're doing, and if that's true, it means Xbox is dead. Hence the title. Now, I could be completely off base. Maybe they're just reshuffling their cards. Maybe Phil Spencer has this figured out. Listen, I actually like Phil Spencer. This is not a I hate Phil Spencer video, which he's getting a lot of right now. I think that man oozes passion for this industry. I think he loves gaming. I think he understands gaming. And I think the man is just in a pile of shit situation. Partially one that he created, possibly, but partially one that was also just created by the situation that he is in, by the people above him, because he does not run Microsoft, and just by the industry itself. I just think it was kind of a shit situation that Bethesda, you get this big game, Starfield, and it just doesn't work out, and you buy all these studios, and all the games they've made just haven't worked out yet. I think it's just kind of not a great situation for him. But while saying that, he has to figure this out now if they're going to sort of get back in the good graces of the public, because Xbox, it seems dead, right? Does anybody think we're getting another Xbox console, like a next generation when the PS6 comes out? I don't know at this point. But to me, it's just sad, though, because at the end of all of this, we can talk about the industry, we can talk about money, we can talk about gaming, whatever. At the end of the day, these are companies out there that are getting shut down that have real human beings working for them. Companies that have people that are passionate about the art form of gaming. People that are, yes, they're there to make a living, but they are just wanting to do what they love to do while making a living. They want to make video games. And these are people that, a lot of which are maybe not going to get the opportunity to work in gaming now because they were shut down by Microsoft, especially these companies that have done good work. Imagine you're working at a company and you have done good to great work. You have been one of the best companies in your industry, like you're just doing great work consistently, and then they tell you, we don't care, you're done. It's fucked up, and it's sad, and I think hopefully everybody that had lost their jobs due to what happened, hopefully they find their way into other companies, hopefully they're able to pick themselves up, but there's real life consequences to greedy studios, and greedy companies. That's kind of what I'm getting at here, and yet again, I'm not blaming this on any one individual, not blaming it on Phil Spencer, but it's just sad to see. It's sad to see, and I know gaming as a whole, the industry is kind of suffering from this. There's been a lot of layoffs, a lot of shutdowns, but hopefully we get back on a better path. So that's it, guys. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe. Please make sure to stick around if you like movie content, gaming content, TV content. I make it all. I upload every day. Please subscribe, turn on notifications, click the video that's going to be on your screen right now. I'll see you in the next one.